Okay, hello there, traders. Welcome to the TOGS Trading Podcast. Where we are up to TOGS 42. Great for you to be here. We're going to talk about that perennial question today of what is your edge as a trader. So hopefully by the end of the session, you'll have a better understanding of edge. You'll have a better understanding of the different types of edge, and hopefully maybe you'll have some ideas about what you can do to work upon improving your edge. So good stuff for you to take away. So thanks for joining us. As always, okay, I'm joined by my accomplice, Big Ian there in Dublin. Looking good, Billy Ray. How you
Thank
doing?
you very much. Well, did with all that with the good beard trim.
Yeah, you've got to get ready for Christmas and panto season, haven't you? You've got to grow it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Either that, or you're appearing as a Captain Ahab in a in a remake of Moby Dick. We could go on.
Well,
We can go on with these, mate.
we could. Yes, yes. It's very hard to look after white hair, actually, because it's everything just shows up in white hair. It's
All
a
right,
pest.
well,
It's, yeah, I was thinking of dyeing it actually for Halloween, just for the crack.
yeah. Well, I think
Nice,
you'd need to be
nice
on
jet
crack
black. Yeah,
to-
lovely. 20 years
well,
younger.
well, we'll look forward to that. Remind me to pencil in a podcast for around then, so we can see you in your dyed beard and stuff and what have you. Maybe a nice rainbow one. That go down well with all your German family and stuff, wouldn't
Yeah.
it?
No,
Everyone
when I
loves a
was in
little
my
rainbow parade.
when I was in my early 30s, very early 30s, I lived in Berlin and I was white when I lived in Berlin, like I had white hair, and everybody just thought I was into techno music. And
Yeah,
it's
there you go. The
yeah,
Irish techno. Yeah, there
my
you go.
barber was
Anyway,
always
so
yeah.
so other than your beard, how have you been getting on? What have you been up to since we last
Well, I
spoke?
was on holidays. I was in holidays on holidays in Germany for the last while. Basically sitting on a beach. And I wasn't doing any actual trading, but I kept looking at the markets.
I know.
Yeah, and it was quite interesting actually because it was a whole week of because I'd only a phone. There isn't even great connection up there, basically where we were. So I only had a phone, so it was all just looking at price action and all that kind of stuff. And it was really just hit me how little you actually need.
Yeah,
Because if you're only taking big sort of obvious stuff during the day, there is actually loads of big obvious stuff once or twice a day. You lots of double bottoms, flag breakouts, that kind of stuff. There's loads of stuff that you can do even without all the technical niceties that you tend to use. In fact, I was thinking during the week that a lot of the stuff that I use probably in some ways is not just useless, but actually gets in my way a little bit because too much information is too much information.
yeah,
It's paralysis,
exactly.
paralysis, or whatever they call it. But that was it. So I was just sitting on the beach, came back last Sunday, having
I saw your posts and stuff and what have you. Some of your charts up there. There's a couple of little crackers there. You can just looking at, yep, that's your trade. Whoop, yep, that's the trade. Yep, that's the trade and stuff and what have you. But yeah, I'm well, some might say it's old school. Some might just say, Paul, you're a dinosaur. But trading off the phone and stuff and what have you. I know you can do it. I know lots of people do it. I know lots of people do well. But I am a bit old school, as in I kind of ring fence my time and my energy. So sit down, do my trading, and then leave and stuff. Trading, as you say, on the beach on a dodgy connection on a phone is not my idea. Not my idea of way of operating, but each their own, right? That's everyone can go about it their own way. That's what makes a market, isn't it? So
I think,
yeah,
yeah, I think the only good thing about it is that when a lot of the times when you go away, or you take a little break from trading for whatever reason, you tend to, because I'm quite an intuitive trader, you lose your connection with the market, and then you come back, and then it
yeah,
takes 4 maybe days or maybe a week to get back, into the mindset and all that kind of stuff. And then by just doing little bits and pieces when you're away, you don't lose that connection as such. You're still there, and it gives you because you can't really do that much. It gives you lots of time to think about what you can actually do. And I found it without being too stressful to actually complete. I found it a very useful exercise actually just to sit there. Like I really came back with new ideas, and I came back with that because I had to work with so little. I came back with new ideas, and I came back with a new sort of you know concept about how I was working. Was I actually simply using too much stuff? Was I do I really need to make this? Because well, it's going to come up later on in this podcast, but all you're doing as a day trader is picking direction. And if you pick the direction and your stop loss is adequate, your day is done.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
basically it. So, and it doesn't, because so many people have these really fancy systems for getting in and out of trades or entering trades. Like, oh, the entry, how do you enter it? It doesn't really matter, because if you blindly buy, if you have a way of working out whether the trend is up or down, and can say with the high probability that it's going to be one or the other, the rest of it is kind of academic. You just enter. If your stop is adequate, price is going to go up, you're going to make money. It's as easy as that, basically. And it's one of the things I talk about. It's actually my last point on my list.
Well, I think there's a kind of interesting point there. Part of it, but that you are right there. I had an experience of that on Monday myself. Okay, there are unfortunately never enough, never as many days you want, but there are days when it is literally directional right from the off. And
Yeah.
Monday was like that. Basically, I was just short the euro on Monday because after von der Leyen and all her Egypt colleagues they literally got railroaded by Trump, etc. You could just tell that the markets weren't going to be happy, and you just literally had to sell the euro at the open and let it run, that worked out well for that trading day, etc. So I mean, there are days when the directional bias is very clear, but as you also say, if your job is if you're going to, especially intraday, if there is trend, you pick it, you enter it, and then you basically put
Mm.
your stop on it. And for most people, you probably could and should walk away and just let it do its thing. But lots of traders find that very hard because they feel a need to interfere, etc. For a whole host of reasons. But maybe that is yeah, a podcast in the future all of itself, namely sort of managing intraday trades. Have we done something like that? I don't think we have, and stuff.
No.
Managing intraday trades. The good, the bad, and the ugly of it. Maybe we'll do that. But
Yeah.
today is all about your edge as a trader, Ian. So it's probably not a bad idea to start with. How would you define edge as a trader? What does edge mean to you as a trader?
Just one thing I'd say about just the last thing is, I think intraday trading really is the art of doing nothing or not doing very much. I really think that that's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
because most of it is about doing nothing. You just don't want to screw with your trades once you're in them, and that is because that is a death sentence. So edge to me basically means that it's just probability. It's just you have a higher probability of one thing happening over another. And if it doesn't work out for you, that you have some way of controlling that loss to a way that it is cheap. You want to keep your losses as cheap as possible while giving your trades the best possible run. And I don't think I don't think an edge is one thing. I think it's a collection
yeah,
of things.
yeah.
Um, so mine starts off with a technical edge. In other words, I'm a good technical analyst. I have my own trading system. I have my own fib system. And that is part of an edge because it means I have a base from where to find trades and to find mechanical ways of finding which way the market is going, which a lot of the time is just looking at the screen. I mean, it's just the thing I was talking about this morning. Actually, is it's if you take fear out of it, and if you see prices just basically overwhelmingly going up, it's probably going to keep going up until it stops going up, and then it's going to reverse. So I think a technical is where you start, but I don't think you can have just a technical edge, because I mean you can have the fastest car in the world and drive it badly and drive it into a wall and kill yourself. So you can have the best technical system. There are loads of wonderful technical analysts who tried to be traders and failed. And that's
Yeah.
that's one part of it, but you need that one thing. The next thing I think is I have a lot of experience because I'm at this a long time. So I have a good feeling, good intuition, um, which is just experience. It's the thousands of hours of sitting in front of a computer and thinking about trading and thinking about patterns and thinking about support and resistance and all these kinds of things, and doing it. And after a while, you get to know what comes next, because you've seen most patterns 1,000 times, and they
Yeah.
they only resolve in one or two ways usually. If you have a bear flag, it either resolves to the downside and then it keeps going, but meanders down. Actually, it usually does not fly down, or else it breaks out the top and tends to go quite quickly because there's a lot of power because it traps the people who are short. So I think experience is a huge one. Resilience. I didn't give up trading, and I think it's a huge thing. I didn't give up trading when it would have made perfect sense for me to just call it a day and do something else with my life. You have to have the resilience to keep going. And that is part of an edge, because resilience, trading will always go wrong for you. You'll always have bad periods of trading. Even when you're a, old veteran trader, you're going to have bad periods, and you need the resilience to keep going. I'm relatively emotionally stable, as in everybody has issues. Everybody has some sort of emotional issue at the end of the day. There's nobody who's 100% brilliant. But any issues I have are not the issues that are going to affect my trading, except one, which is the one that got me along the longest way in trading, which is I tend to be very conservative. So, and that is a great thing, because conservative traders, you get an awful lot of traders who are, when you meet professional traders, there's usually two types. There are guys who are making an income who are conservative traders. And they're very diligent and they're very hardworking, and they get past the line, and then they get to the other side of it, and then they grow slowly, but they never really, like an awful lot of traders that I would have known are on the same position size for 10 years. They're making a good living. And the thing is, they can make a good living in a short period of time during the day. It's what most people would fantasize about. And then you have other traders who are diligent, hardworking gamblers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those boys tend to make, they will have spectacular blow-ups occasionally, but they can do spectacularly well. And once they rein in all that, they get their edge, and they work that edge for all it's worth. I also wonder as well, is it because an awful lot of professional traders I know are middle-aged? Maybe that's just the
yeah. I think there's definitely an element of attrition and basically just living through it and surviving it. I
yeah.
would probably add a third group or a third group that are not diligent, don't do any hard work, and are inveterate shoot from the hip gamblers, and then basically just show up and blow up and do it repeatedly until either they get bored or they run out of capital, or they're just Egypts and get the ecosystem takes them out in one way or another and stuff. But yeah. Yeah, I would agree that take you said there, I would say is exactly how I would, because I talk about you being like a fear-based trader or a greed-based trader, and I would say your first group that's a way I would describe fear-based traders. Just kind of very conservative, just basically. The tortoise and the hare, they are definitely the tortoise. Just basically, as you say, don't scale up, don't overtrade, very conservative, just plod along, as opposed to the others who might have the work and the effort and stuff, but they are the hare, they are the gamblers, they're the greed-based traders and stuff. And if they can control their risk and control their impulsiveness, they can do really, really well. But they have to survive long enough to learn how to manage themselves. So that's it's a couple of good points there. I when you talk about those elements of, like, your analysis being like one of your edges, I would so basically I would kind of look at four edges. I would look at a statistical edge. So you've got I don't know, 55% hit rate at a 2-to-1 reward to risk. You've got positive expectancy. That's a statistical edge, and there's variations of that. I would look at informational edge. An informational edge, either you have an ability to understand information, or you have an ability to see something in the information that gives you an edge, or if you're on the naughty side, you have a black edge of some sort. If you're trading stocks or something like that. And then, and this is one of the things I'd sort of say about yourself is you've got an execution edge. Either you can execute faster and better, and with more control and ruthlessness than other people, And then the final one would be, I'd say, of the four, I'd say you've got like a psychological edge, a psychological edge, as in a bit like what you're saying, an ability to be resilient, ability to be patient, an ability to manage your emotions, if not control them, at least manage them, and the ability to basically to carry out your plan and be diligent in basically achieving the aim, which is to basically to follow your plan, okay, and trade in line with your plan. So that's how I define the four, as basically statistical, informational, execution, or behavioral, sort of psychological edge. So that's how I'd be describing it. And I would view myself in terms of my edges would be definitely on the kind of execution and the psychological. That would be where I think my edges are. That's where they show up. That's where they play out. And it's you were talking about the sort of people who are the gamblers and stuff. They're the ones who I would say have no statistical edge. They're just hoping that it works out for them. And as we all know, as you hear me bang it on about, hope is not a strategy when you're trading markets, is it?
No, no. Just one of the things I was thinking when you're saying that is that you also get, as you go on and you survive in the markets a bit long, you also have really simple concepts,
Yep.
which are things. And one of the things I always find with concepts is that there's two ways of understanding a concept. You can logically understand a concept. Most people logically understand concepts, but they don't emotionally understand them. And there's a vast difference between them, because you can understand you shouldn't put your hand in a fire because it will hurt. But there's an emotion. Most people have an emotion attached to that because they've been burned at some stage in their life, physically burned in some way. So one of the things that happens as you grow as a trader is that the concepts, all those concepts that you hear about in the media, in the trading media, are true, but they become part of you. And it's a much different thing because you're not resisting them. And then you get some of the other ones, like I was just talking about it this morning to somebody else. It's cheaper for me to lose a trade than to skip. And that's one of the big things with execution, because that makes it much easier for me. It's cheaper because it's costing me what, 2-3 points.
Yep. Yep.
If I don't take that trade, the probability is I could lose 20 points. So it's cheaper in the long run for me to get stopped out 3 times than miss a trade. And that's a big difference when it comes to execution and having to press the button. It probably makes me I press the button probably too often because I'm quite aggressive at entering, and it's cheap for me to enter because that execution is one of the things that I tend to be really, really good at. And then when you do control your losses, how can you be hurt? You can have a technical problem with your trading platform, and everybody's has had those from time to time, but they're just part of the business. But if you can control your losses and you're happy, I'm spending 3 points, 2 points, 3 points on a trade. That's, if I lost 20 times in a row, it's not really going to do that much to my account. So it's not how I cannot be hurt by the market. And that means that I'm working in a much easier psychological space than most other people, unless I'm working out with spread bettors, because spread bettors are just still I shouldn't say anything too nasty about spread bettors. Some of them are my best friends, but they're working with spread better just changes that dynamic a little bit, because the pricing is so, I think, so bad for what I can do, that I find it diabolical. One of the other things I'd written down, I'm not ego driven. I wasn't, not with trading, because I realized early on in life, just in general, that finding something out or being temporarily embarrassed by something causes a snap of pain. But then if you get that information from somebody, or you get that help from somebody, or in this case, which it was with trading, it lasts a long time. So it's cheaper to be humiliated a little bit than to not get what you need. And it's the same thing. So then when it comes to trading, I don't have an ego because I don't want, I'm not in it to prove myself right. I'm not in it to prove myself anything except I'm here to get money. That's all I'm here for. I have a need for money, as everybody does in their life. I have school fees, I have house insurance, I have all those things. And I need that money. And that's all I need. I don't need to be proved right. I don't have an ego investment in the in trading.
Yes.
Nice. But it's not that important. I also take responsibility as well for everything. The market does never screws me. I screw myself. Everything.
Totally.
It's actually one of the things I always remember my dad used to give out to me. He's going, "You're such a pessimist." And it's not pessimism, it's responsibility because
Yeah.
I'm responsible for everything. I am the person who acts on the world and the world then acts back to me. There are some things that are uncontrollable, that's fine. But this trading is not one of them. I press the button at the end of the day. I enter the trade and I exit the trade. So I am responsible. And once you're responsible, you have to do it. There's no, a lot of people are, oh, the market was really difficult today, blah, blah, blah. Um, I would have made it, but something externally went wrong. No,
Yeah.
it's you. It's all you. You're it. There's nothing else. So I really think that that's quite a
I
good
think that's
thing.
that. Yeah, there's some excellent points there, and hopefully, people who are watching this or listening, actually, hopefully, even just in the last bit there, just start to get an understanding and impression of, how Edge is it's a multi-domain thing, and actually how just even your comments there and stuff is about what your edge can be, and how your edge can be a simple psychological edge in terms of you just take absolute responsibility for 100% of everything that happens to you as a trader in the market. Nobody forces you to pull the trigger on a trade. Nobody forces you to do it. All right, so when the trade goes wrong, because they will, all right, is what happens. Welcome to trading, but taking responsibility the fact that it was your job to basically do the analysis, manage the risk, put the trade on, and the market defines and decides when and if you'll get paid, and it's just you take 100% responsibility for it. I think that is I think something that people at the start of the journey could take away that could help them. Just literally take 100% responsibility, for it all, and use that as a way and a means to learn. All right, learn from those mistakes, learn from those experiences, and because very often people will have let's say, miserable experiences from either from a trade or a day or a week or a month or a quarter and stuff. They'll have miserable experience. Maybe there'll be some people who've had miserable years this year, and basically being able to sort of, I might want to ignore that. I might want to just forget about it. Whereas actually, the ones who will survive and thrive are the ones who will take personal agency and basically say, right, okay, I'll take responsibility for this. What's the score? Get the data, dig into it, analyze the data, look at where they have made genuine, honest mistakes. Look at where trades just haven't worked, and start to work their way out of that. And it's not easy.
No,
It's not easy and stuff. That can be challenging on many levels, all right. But it's the only way. It is the only way. If you have no edge, it is the only way to find and develop and hone your edge. And it's not something you do once, and that's it. You're done forevermore. It's something that you're constantly always working at. All right, finding edge, developing edge, honing edge, maintaining edge. That is something that, if anything, that's what becomes you as a trader, being able to sort of just, find, manage, maintain, hone your edge and work at it, for the rest of your days. It's not something you can take for granted, is it?
no. What I would say as well with that ego is that if you can control your ego, you can stop. Because what you end up an awful lot of the times, you have people who are in trading and their ego gets involved in it and they can't stop when things are going wrong. They can't sit there
Yeah.
and say, okay, I've lost whatever. I
Yeah, I
need to
know.
stop.
I've
I need
seen
to
that.
stop. Yeah, I need to stop and reevaluate what I was doing. And
Yeah.
because what I find a lot of traders who are at it a while but aren't professional yet or aren't doing what they want to do with it. It's either things that either with them is fear. They're either
Yep.
afraid in some way and they're expressing that fear through trading, and that's blocking them. And tracking down fear in yourself is
Yeah.
really quite a difficult thing because it's a place where the ego gets involved, where you're like, oh, well, I'm not afraid of trading. I'm not afraid of anything. And it's a and actually I was just thinking about it last night because there's a Western called Shane from 1953.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
remember.
and I watched it last night. I was still way too late watching Shane on last night, and I was looking at the idea of masculinity in Shane, and it was all how it was perpetuated. Like the little boy running around going, "You're not scared, Shane. You can go and beat them all up, and this cut in your head can't hurt you, Shane. You're tough." And I was thinking, and that's really that's really not the way to attack trading. That's great if you're going off to homestead the American West in the 1880s or something, but it's not a way of doing it.
I think there was an additional podcast that we could nickname Big Ian Segways that basically where Captain Tangent comes in and takes us off in an interesting and related direction.
I
But
think there's something to do with dyslexia. I really think.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, I find it fact. Well, this is why we're pals. Normally,
yeah,
we can, it can enjoy these conversations over a pint and
yeah.
goes and stuff and
Mm,
what have you. It goes off in all sorts of directions. That's what makes for
yeah,
an interesting afternoon. But
yeah.
yeah, well, I don't think. Well, maybe Shane would have made a good trader. Maybe Shane would have made a good trader.
I think he was in touch with himself in a way that you need, because that's actually my next one, which is I'm quite self-aware, and I'm self-aware to know that
Hmm.
I'm not
Yeah,
self-aware enough.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I are self-reflected, I should
Wise
say,
words.
because I really like self-reflection. And self-reflection, how I
Yeah,
ended up with that is that I got really interested in people when I was really young, which is kind of weird because I'm introverted. Like I would test introverted if I'm doing tests. And I started looking and it was from watching a film, and you would watch an actor in three different films, and in one film he's the hero, the next film he's the hardworking dad, and then the third film he's a loser. So it's the same guy with three different
yeah,
representations. And the only way that there was different was how he acted. And then I got this whole thing where I understood that how you act affects the world, and then you take that to trading, and then you start watching professional traders, which was actually really hard when I started off first to get in contact with professional traders because there was no. But when you
yeah,
start watching them and you start understanding their psychology, you can model that and take that away with you. There are good traders on YouTube, for instance, or on the internet, or
yeah,
in Telegram rooms, or whatever they are, that are
yeah,
professional, free. They're trading live because they have to trade live. I think for those, if you want to see their psychology, because you have to see them in the moment. Oh, I'm losing this trade. Oh, whatever.
yeah. Just quickly on that, you're absolutely right that success and good behavior can be modelled, and if you remember, for those of you who've read New Market Wizards, I think one of the final chapters is with it's not with a trader, he's an NLP guy. I think his name's Charles Faulkner. I might have his name completely wrong, right? But he was all about modeling best behavior in traders. And I met the guy in London at a completely unrelated kind of networking event. Not, it wasn't trading related at all, but he stood up to give a talk about modeling success. And I realized, I know that name from somewhere. And then I'm like, God, this is the guy from New Market Wizards. He's a really nice guy whenever in chatting, but him, Van Tharp, NLP guys in particular, they talk about how behavior can be modeled, it can be understood, it can be modeled, etc. And it can be. But as a retail trader, that's not actually very easy because you tend to be at home on your own, reading books like New Market Wizards and trying to sort of model it on there. But the thing about all those chapters in like New Market Wizards is that each of the guys is a different guy. The Paul Tudor Jones is different from Tom Basso, who's different from the a couple of the other guys and stuff and what have you. So it is. You're absolutely right. It is challenging to model it as a private trader when you don't really get to see. You don't really get to see that many sort of opportunities to experience it. Normally, unfortunately, most people these days, they'll watch some Egypt on a YouTube clip trying to tell you how great he is and stuff, and the reality is kind of different, isn't it? Very different.
I mean, I watched it when I was on holidays as well. I watched a lot of trading TikToks. Jesus.
Why?
There's
Why do you do that to yourself,
nothing to
Big
do.
Ian?
It's sitting, eating ice cream and, looking at TikTok. Not much else to be doing when you're on a beach, because we're up on this beach, up on this island in the Baltic Sea. It's not a fairground, so, and I come from a seaside town. I grew up
Yeah.
with all that sort of fishing thing. So I watched a lot of trading TikToks, and some of them are really quite.
There's just some of them are just, they just annoy me. I've watched one or two. Not normally just you just basically you find it by accident, and you think, oh, what's this fella talking about? And then you realize, my God, he's an idiot. He's an absolute idiot. But anyway,
Yeah.
so bringing it back
Um,
to Edge, all right? Because
yeah,
we're trying to keep these podcasts a bit short this time. But the
yeah.
thing is, Edge is something we could talk about for days on end, isn't it? I mean, it is. I find it. It is a useful subject, trading. It's a fascinating subject. You just said that. As I said, it's psychological edge, and I think probably it's one of the things I probably want people to take away from it, especially those who are listening or watching this at the start of the journey, is that many people talk about edge, but in many ways, it's about understanding what edge isn't. Having edge does not mean that you don't take a losing trade. You still have losing trades, right? Having edge doesn't mean that you are right every time. That's it's far from it. It's about being able to operate in environments where there is uncertainty, where you are wrong, okay, where you do make mistakes, and yet you're still able to function. You're still able. For me, it is literally, this bang, this trade meets my rules. The risk is within my rules. The math works out. Do your job. Mission engage. In you go. And being able to do that, even if you've had two losing trades, that morning as an intraday trader, etc. You are able to operate in uncertainty in spite of your performance, not being sort of affected massively by those kind of let's say those external and sometimes internal challenges and obstacles that we put in our way. So so sometimes it can help to understand what edge is. It doesn't mean that you're right all the time. It doesn't mean you don't take losing trades. You're right. Doesn't mean that that you every day's a winning day. It's about you being able to operate in spite of those. And so there you go.
I actually just happened to write down what I thought was the three edge killers. One is fear, because scared
Yep.
money makes no money, because you're going to operate in a very defensive way. And if you operate defensive, it just
Yep.
means you get killed by small cuts. That's all it does.
Exactly.
You want to trade the market. You want to trade the market the way you want to trade the market. You're trying to enforce your value
Yeah.
system
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the market. Doesn't work. Doesn't
Doesn't
work.
work. No.
Um,
No. You're so
or
right.
look, yeah, or looking for an emotional return. Which is a huge thing
Yeah.
as well. We're not really trading money most of the time, especially when you're new and you've only got a small account and you're not, living from it. You're not trading money, you're trading your emotions.
Yeah.
And you're
Yep.
looking for as much as anything else. What we're really looking for at the end of the day is to feel great, feel
Yep.
powerful. And trading can do that for you for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's you get some, you see all these 24-year-old guys on TikTok and they're all like, trying to show that thing. What they're basically saying is that I'm really powerful, I'm really smart, I'm really whatever, I feel great about me. And
Yeah.
that's what they're trying to do with it. The last
Yeah.
thing I
You're
have
right.
on my list is keeping it simple concepts.
Yep.
Um,
Well, that could be an edge.
that's I
It's like
think
huge
that's
edge.
that's I think that's becoming for me is becoming more important the longer I'm in the market. Because what I'm starting to find is that it's all faff except for price does three things. It either goes up, goes down, goes sideways. There isn't a third thing.
Yep.
Up and down, up or down, pick the direction, put in an appropriate stop loss, get the hell away from it. It goes sideways. You're not going to lose that much money. Who cares? You might even make some. But or it goes down, you're wrong once, whatever, short it. That's all you're trying to do. And the main job of a day trader, which I said at the beginning, is picking direction. Fancy systems are too fancy.
Yeah.
The,
Yeah.
the analysis by
Yeah.
paralysis thing at the end of the day. And like really simple concepts, like it in uptrends, pullbacks are held. That's
Yeah.
how lower highs are born. You know, um, you need to earn the safe money, not all the money. So you don't need to be in everything all the time. You just need to be in the right thing once in a day, and then you're golden, because you can size up. You can do so many things if you can get one good trade a day, or even one good trade a week. So you don't need to be in everything. You're not missing anything because it wasn't meant for you in the first place. You weren't there. You were in the bathroom. You were looking out the window. Whatever. You're not there for that. You were there for safe money. You're there to get the highest probability trades that you can possibly get, because that's the only way to size up, is high probability trades. Because if you're in everything and you're in and out, in and out, in and out, you're taking on a huge emotional toll. And you can't, if you introduce size with that, you have slippage, which is a problem, which is one problem. But then you have the emotional side of it, which is you're just working at a higher emotional intensity than you really need to be, and that's going to kill your edge at the end, because it can be too much for you. So you just need to get the safe money, just sit there, wait, patience. You're hunting with a single bullet. When I was young, I used to go shooting rabbits with a cousin,
Oh yeah.
and he'd bring like 6 cartridges, and I'd bring 2 boxes, and I come home with 6 cartridges, and he come home with 4, and we both had hit the same thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's all you need, and that's more or less
It's
it. I
about being
think,
a sniper, not
yeah,
a machine gunner.
yeah. Edge it's not one thing. It's that you have the ability to put lots of things together to just do one task, which is picking the direction, your daily direction, and then getting into it, and then staying there till it doesn't make any sense to be in it anymore. Because price will
Fabulous.
prove it to you all the time. If you're supposed to be there, price will tell you.
Fabulous. All right. I think that's probably a good place for us to draw to a close this week, because, as I said, we could talk all afternoon about Edge, couldn't we? Quite happily and stuff. So we'll draw it to a close then. But listen, hopefully, if you've been listening, that hopefully you've just given you some little bit of help, a little bit of insight about what Edge is, the different types of edges. All right, the things that we see people doing that kill their edge. All right. So if you are doing those things, here's some great trade advice. Stop doing them. Stop doing them. All right. Do the opposite of what the Egypts are doing. And you just start to give yourself a chance. All right. And that's a starting point. Okay. That's a starting point that you can move forward from. Cool. So I think we're back in 2 weeks for TOGS 43. I think we're going to talk about, is it worth trading through August? I suspect that will be whereas this has been a longer podcast, that will be probably a shorter one, but nonetheless, I appreciate if you're at the start of your journey, that might give you a bit of help and insight into especially understanding trading through high volatility times and through low volatility times, and what that implies. Listen, as always, thanks very much to everybody who has basically liked and signed and messages and stuff. We do appreciate, we really do. We love it. Appreciate that. It's helping people, and that people are getting stuff from the pods. So thanks once again for that. And hopefully we'll see you in a couple of weeks for TOGS 43 about, is it worth trading through August? And as always, listen, thanks very much, Ian. And enjoy the holiday next week. You're in Cork, aren't you, next week and stuff?
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself there and stuff. So if we've got any people from Cork, they can grab you for a pint. I'm sure you wouldn't put up much of a fight, would you?
No, not particularly. Although I'd say we're doing enough like child minding, because we're meeting my wife's cousins.
Oh, right, child minded. Well,
Yeah.
listen, my childhood in summer and back in Ireland was literally sat outside a pub with a can of pop and a packet of crisps while all the adults went in and had a right old good old time. That was the way it worked back in those days. But I suspect that is now seen as inappropriate parenting in the modern age.
I remember being in the UK in the 90s, and being totally surprised because they had playgrounds and out the back of some of the behind the beer garden. I was like, wow, high concept. Well,
There
but
you
anyway,
go. There you go. That's progress for you. All right. All right. Listen, thanks very much, everybody, for joining us. Have yourself a fabulous trading week if you are trading through the summer, and we'll speak to you in a couple of weeks, everybody. Thanks very much. Cheers.